Hey, everybody. Welcome into lesson number one. And in this particular lesson, totally free for everybody who is here and will be free forever, I'm going to teach you how you can utilize eBay, one of the most available and accessible and easy to use resources in the world, to do something that nobody's doing and to get data that nobody's looking at in order to define your watch targets. Because the worst thing you can do as a watch trader and generally as a person is spend all day scrolling through eBay, which is actually what most watch traders, investors, and even enthusiasts will do. I know because I've done it myself. For example, let me just go ahead and show you what this looks like. And I know you know, but I'm going to do it. Let's just say I like Rolex Daytonas. Well, here's the thing. First of all, there's a million different Daytonas, and I don't know much about which one to buy necessarily, even now. And I'm pretty much an expert on the watch market, especially Rolex Daytonas. I have a Daytona right there and another one in the back. Nonetheless, let's talk about it. So if I'm looking at Rolex Daytonas, there's 2,200 plus results. The first one's a beautiful John Mayer for $109,000. Is that a good price? No. See, this actually isn't a Daytona, but this is. So I guess my point is there's a whole lot of things that eBay is doing right, and a whole lot of things that it's kind of got a little wrong. Nonetheless, we are here to learn how to use it the right way. And so that way, even if you choose not to go with a watchquant.com, which is starting as a free resource, has a membership that you can choose to subscribe for, which is a full business suite for less than $20 a month. You can choose to use that, or you can just do what we're going to do today. So today I'm going to give you basically the free manualized version of how you can get the specific metrics necessary to determine which watch you should buy instead of spending all day scrolling looking for a needle in a haystack, which is basically a good deal, a great watch that you think will be able to sell at a great price. It's so rare to find that, especially since, do you know exactly which watches you should buy? Why? Well, I will tell you in my experience and in everything I've learned, I've done hundreds of deals, hundreds of thousands of dollars of watch deals just in the last year, and built a technology around this. I can tell you for sure the most important, literally the most important thing, more important than price, about a watch, if you plan to buy it and then arbitrage it, sell it for a little bit more, or even if you plan to make a good amount of money on it, the most important thing is liquidity. Unless you have a storefront and a whole bunch of money set aside for what people might call inventory, unless you have that, you do not want to be holding on to a watch for 6 months or a year. That's called carry cost. And the longer you hold on to a watch for, the more likely you might have to take it for maintenance, which can be 500 to 1,500 or maybe more dollars. If it's a Rolex, it'd be like 1,500 bucks, maybe less. If it is a Mont Blanc, like one I have right back here, this one is a tourbillon. And tourbillon is a really cool watch. It's a venturine dial. I'm not trying to show my watches off. I'm going to put this one on. I love this watch, but I'll tell you what, when this is ready for a service, which it will be probably in the next year or so, I just put it on the watch time grapher, and well, let's just say it's off by about 7 seconds a day right now, which is getting to the point where now it's no longer COSC certified parameters, and yeah, it's probably going to get there. It's tourbillon, great, beautiful watch, very expensive from the start, not too expensive today because it's Mont Blanc. Nonetheless, it has to go back to Switzerland for me to actually get this thing serviced. It'll be $4,000 to $5,000 and 6 months out of my life, meaning I will not have the watch for 6 months. So it's an insane carry cost. Luckily, this is my personal watch, and I plan on holding on to it probably and passing it down to my son the day I die. So what you don't want to do is buy watches that are illiquid, because if you plan on flipping them, or if you plan on investing and holding on to it for a little while but then trading it in later, you want that watch to be yeah, sure, great watch, a watch you like, but it's important that that you get the type of watch that you like that is also the right watch, and that is liquidity first, then price. So how do we calculate liquidity? Because guess what? The watch market is not like the stock market. There is nobody watching the data. Nobody is doing anything except for us here at WatchQuant and a couple other folks at Watch Charts, who are not really doing the same thing we're doing. In fact, they're partners of ours, and we love working with them, and we love talking about them because they provide amazing charts for you to check out. We provide metrics to help you trade specifically for investors and traders. So let's get into it. Let's say we're looking at Rolex Daytona. This is what it looks like today if I'm not using this method we're about to learn. If I'm not using liquidity, I'm going to scroll. and say, wow, that's pretty. 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 Like, it's cool. Every one of these watches is gorgeous. I love them. Oh, blue dial, man, that's cool. Click on it, you check it out. You spend a whole bunch of time like looking through it. Is this the right one? And like you could spend 5 to 10 minutes just researching just one watch. There's 2,200 watches here. So if I'm looking to buy a Daytona because I will like Daytonas, I should probably have a target in mind. Now, WatchQuant has AI driven targets, meaning we have real time market data streaming into the app. We utilize AI to use logic. And so this is not just random AI. We're asking ChatGPT, hey, ChatGPT, which watch should I buy? That's not what this is. This is basically machine learning, not really AI per se, although we are utilizing the open AI. We're using OpenAI and the plugins there, but we are using the most advanced logic that you can get from AI, along with real time market data to tell you which watches to avoid using our math and which watches you should buy. Now, here's how you do the math. I'm going to give away the secret, right? This is a beautiful watch. In fact, let's just say I want for sure a blue dial Daytona, the other John Mayer, right? This is the other John Mayer. He talked a lot about that watch. But this is years ago now, and the price has come down a bit. I know in my heart of hearts, because I'm an expert watch trader, for a fact that this watch I would never buy for more than $38,000. That's my price because I know I would never be able to sell it for more than 43. Wholesale probably 40. So I want to make at least 5% after fees, if there are fees to begin with. So absolutely, I want to buy this watch for 38,000. That's me. If you're using WatchQuant, you would also know that. But if you're using eBay, let's make an assumption here that 62 might be one of the best prices you'll see. Okay, so let's scroll up, and I want to teach you about the left side here. This is important. This is pretty much everything. Now we looked up Rolex Daytona. Now I'm going to say dial color. Okay, I know I want blue dial. Now I'm going to be able to see a whole bunch of different blue dials. There'll be a couple of yellow golds, we have platinums, this, that, and the other thing, but you will see that one we're looking at. Now, what we do is we are going to take this, and instead of saying distance nearest first or best match, we don't do that. We say um, lowest first, price plus shipping lowest first. Now, the first thing you're going to notice is the very first listing, it's a dial. Okay, this is obviously screwing us over, right? We do not want to be looking at dials. Sometimes you'll see like 20 or 50 dials. This is a very rare dial, so we're not going to necessarily worry about that. But the point here is that you want to scroll down until you find this. Now, this is kind of new. I think it's only been in eBay available for about a year now. What you're going to do is you're going to look for authenticity guarantee, and usually that will eliminate the possibility of seeing a dial. Actually, in this case, it won't because that dial is authenticity guaranteed because it's above the threshold. This dial is not worth $14,000. Please don't buy this dial for $14,000. It's probably worth like $2,000 to $3,000 simply because it's a rare watch, and some people will cheat, put it inside of this watch here with a white dial, and then sell it for way more. But anyway, nonetheless. So another thing we want to make sure that we're doing here is we want to make sure we are eliminating the types of watches we don't want. So blue dial, yes, authenticity guaranteed, absolutely required. Let's see if we can narrow this down a little bit more because I don't want to see the two tones, right? So this says band material. Now, this is a bracelet, not a band. But if we say white gold, that guarantees us, at least it should, that we're going to be looking at the right model now. As you can see, it has already now guaranteed to have eliminated all of the watches that have the two tone or yellow gold versions of bracelets. Um, so here we go from top to bottom. Now, this is really where you want to be, right? We are looking at, and this is going to help us understand supply, by the way. We're going to be looking specifically for two different metrics, supply and demand. If you understand supply and demand for anything in the world, you will understand the economics of it, or you'll be able to make extrapolations and understand what's going on with the watch. So, quickly, okay, cool. So let's check this out. Now, what are we doing here? We are taking a look at the lowest authenticity guaranteed white gold Daytona with a blue dial, and it's $45,950. Okay, how many are there? There's 28. That means in our filter, with it all there, filtered, beautiful, and great, what are we doing? We are saying there's 28 of them. We're going to write that down in our little notebook. So what am I going to do? I'm going to open up my notes, and I'm going to actually do this, right? I'm going to open up my notes and put this in my little notepad. Say, hey, new notes, blue dial Daytona, okay, and they're 28 supply. Okay, take my notes out, and move on. Now, very simple. This is super simple. If you want to figure out what the demand is for this watch, and we're just going to stick with eBay for right now, and we're not going to worry so much about the fact that we know eBay has fees, and we know that eBay doesn't have all the watches. Carbon 24 will have some watches that eBay doesn't have, and the forums will have some watches that eBay doesn't have. But you know what we want to do more than anything is we need to avoid duplicates, because if you have, say, if you take everything into account, you say, oh, well, there's 185 listings for this watch. Probably about 30 to 40% of those listings are actually duplicates. 28, even though it's less than the actual amount, will be um, it's what's called in statistics leveling the playing field, right? We want to make sure that we are not including duplicates, and the best way to make sure there are no duplicates of any specific watch is to eliminate even ones that would otherwise count. And if we do so, then what we're really focusing on here is the ratio of supply to demand, and that's actually more important than the outright number, unless you get down to the point where there's only one or two. And then it's a little more important if there are more outside of the platform. But the ratio is always going to be the most important thing. So we have our supply. Now, if you want to see demand, eBay will tell you the significant amount of sold watches of this type within the last 30 to 60 days. So you can figure that out if you'd like by simply clicking on the sold button. Now that's down here, another one people don't really often use or know about. If you click on that, it will now show me not the ones for sale. Rather, it'll show me the ones that have sold through. You can see not very many have sold through. Two in the last 30 days. July 1st and July 5th. Really not many at all. So, considering the fact that we only have two authenticity guaranteed listings, white gold with blue dials, it's good to see if you're bullish on this watch and you own it, that those sale prices were one was 53.9 and the other one was 54.95, 595, excuse me, and there was some negotiation happened. You can assume generally negotiations do not go above 10% in price, so it's probably no less than 50K. So we're seeing a 53 or 54 and a 50 here. Now with fees and everything, the person probably only made like 42. That's kind of close to what I'm thinking here. So there's a lot of things that I would teach you if I were teaching a course, and I'm not. This is free just to teach you the math that WatchQuant uses. You can choose to take this home and use it yourself just to figure it out, or you can use WatchQuant, start for free, or spend 20 bucks a month and get it. I mean, geez Louise, $20 a month, not even 19.97 a month for me to calculate all of this for you. And now you know exactly what's going on, so you can kind of trust it. Okay, so we have two. That's considered your demand. What is this saying now? We have 28 supply and two demand. And you're not seeing me write this. I'm just putting it on my note here, my little notepad. Okay. Now we can do a couple things with these numbers. First of all, one of the things you want to do is you want to say, okay, well, what's my demand velocity, otherwise known as hype? You can't figure that out on eBay, but you can on watch charts. Okay, and this is pretty cool. So watch charts, like I said, definitely amazing company, and some people think that we compete with them. We don't. They have a completely different service than we do, and we are for traders and investors, and they're really just for watch enthusiasts who want to know the pricing. So if we go to watch charts and you look up this watch, Rolex Daytona 116509, and just click enter, you will find it. Oh, okay. Well, their search engine may not be perfect, but okay. So we'll find it's the first click here. Great. When we click in, if you scroll, you actually don't have to scroll out. You'll see the blue dial here. Okay. Right. You do want to make sure you're clicking the blue dial one, because otherwise you'll see aggregated all of the Daytonas in white gold, which will be a lot more than just 10. So this is saying over the last 12 months, 10 of them have sold. That is very few for 12 months. That's less than one per month. Although you can see that, and we'll get to this in just a second, we see that 10 sold over the last 12 months. So the TTM is, we write this down, TTM demand is 10. Now we have these three numbers, right? 28 supply, 2 demand, and TTM, 2 demand and 10 TTM demand. Here's what we do. Because Watch Charts takes into account demand from more than just eBay, we must consider that number to be about a 60% of this. So we're actually going to make this lower. We're going to take this and we're going to say 60% of this, because 60% of the listings on Watch Charts on average are actually eBay listings. The rest are forums. So we're going to say 60%. So really it's not 10, it's 6, right? That means one half watch per month. Now we can get something called velocity, or hype is what I like to call it. So hype is equal to what? Hype is basically going to be equal to, or if you want to simplify this, it's super easy. What is the trailing 12, sorry, the trailing 30 to 60 day demand? Two. And then you subtract that from the average monthly demand of your trailing 12 months. Now, in order to get that, what do we have to do? We have to say 6 divided by 12. Why? There's 12 months in a year. This is trailing 12-month demand. And you're going to end up with a zero point 0.5, right? So if you say 2 minus zero point 0.5 is equal to what? 1.5. 1.5 units. That means, and this is not the end of it, but that means that there is, over the last 2 months, 300% of the normal, the average, if you will, sell through, or the average demand. Now, 300% of the average demand, the demand over the last 12 months, you can bet that this watch is beginning to move and that there's hype behind it. Something happened, and I don't know 100% what it is. We do use AI. We haven't yet figured out how to have AI tell us what's going on YouTube and everywhere else. But I bet you if you were to start looking up all the keywords and you were to start looking at the eBay API, or the APIs of YouTube and all that, you'd find that more people are searching for this watch because there's 300% more of them having sold on eBay than a normal 12-month period. So what do you have? And in order to get that, by the way, you would simply say 2 minus zero point 0.5, right? And that gets you your number 1.5, right? And then you divide that by zero point 0.5, right? And then you will have, a 3. So you take that and you multiply that by 100. You're going to need just a little bit. There's a couple more of these. You want to do your parentheses properly. And this is going to get you to your 300. Okay, that is your score. 300% hype. You will actually see it on WatchQuant if you just decide to use it. Demand velocity. That means not the speed of demand. The change in speed of demand is 300% over the last month. That's a hugely bullish indicator for this watch. And you can tell it's kind of bullish because I told you at the beginning I wouldn't want to buy it for less than 38 or for more than 38. We just saw it listed and selling at 53. So something's moving on this watch. Good news. There's a lot of stuff going on in the markets, and who knows? Maybe the Fed's moving. But believe it or not, watches and watch markets are very, very much in touch with the economy. Okay, because some of the world's smartest people and most money savvy people buy watches and wear watches. So 300% demand velocity. Then you also have your simple stuff, right? So you have in the basically you have terrible numbers here when you look at supply demand. Your supply to demand, or what we would actually compare demand first, 2 to 28 reduces down to what? 1 to 14. So your ratio of demand to supply is 1 to 14, meaning there's a ton of supply on the market. That makes this a buyer's market, not a seller's market, but this is a conflicting divergence, if you will. You have a massive demand velocity on the upside and a buyer's market which drives the price to the downside. This is actually a pretty good indicator that this watch is probably a good thing to look to buy. It's also an indicator that this watch is increasing in liquidity, but not very liquid, right? So liquidity, I'm not going to give you our exact measurement because we have a dynamic measurement with liquidity that that AI actually will move depending on the watch, but it is basically an aggregation of demand velocity, the ratio of demand to supply. Actually, I'm sorry, it's supply to demand. This is a negative factor, right? Demand to demand, excuse me, and also absolute demand, as well as absolute supply. So if you look at these and you say, okay, look, absolute demand is 2. There's absolutely really only a major demand of 2 watches over the last 30 days, but there are 28 available. Now, the fact that there are so many available means that there's a lot on the market. It's liquid for buying, why it's a buyer's market. It's illiquid for selling comparatively, But if you look at the trailing 12 months demand, right? We said we had 300% demand velocity here. That means that it's three times more liquid than it was last year or over the last year on average. And then the ratio kind of, 1 to 14, right? So this tells us if we take all four of these and you put them together in a beautiful equation, you will find your liquidity score. And with that liquidity score, you will be able to determine, is this a watch I want to target based on your own personal situation? With WatchQuant, we help you with that. You can target things for 20 bucks a month. We'll do all the math for you for thousands of watches, and you can just simply look at our scanners, which will point out these watches. This probably wouldn't make it to the chopping block for our scanners, um, simply because we recommend watches with a minimum liquidity. And even though there's a huge hype, this would pop up if you were looking at what we would call our hype or our demand velocity scanner, which simply scans for high demand velocities and doesn't and kind of ignores everything else. It would pop up there. But other than that, we also require a minimum liquidity for things to pop up on our recommended scanners. So you would not see this pop up on our recommended scanners, but you would see it pop up on demand velocity. So if you are kind of speculative and you want to play and say, hey, I bet you this watch is going to skyrocket because we're seeing the price moving up from the 40s up to 53, and we are seeing a huge demand velocity. This is a huge demand velocity. Most of the time, you do not see anything like this. Willing to bet that these are going to sell through and over the next few months, and we're going to see this watch spike. Maybe that's something you want to do. Now, that's pretty much the whole lesson, guys. If you can take these numbers, it's so simple what I just showed you. If you do that, supply, demand, and then find out the trailing 12 months so you can do some extra math, you do this simple math. And then all of a sudden, what are you going to be able to do? You're going to be able to determine whether or not this goes on your target list. Then, if it goes on your target list, you need to figure out what the right price is to buy at, what the risk will be at that price, risk to reward ratio, what the probability of profit's going to be at that price, given the market and the way the market's working. And of course, you also need to be able to actually negotiate for these watches. As we saw, there was actually watches trading at 44, 45. And if we want to buy that watch, we're going to have to negotiate to get it at my price, which is 38. How did I figure that price out? Not in this lesson, guys. Sorry. In the next lesson, we're going to start using WatchQuant, which will show you how to calculate, first of all, what the watch is worth based on its condition for a sell price. But then, because you also want to know how much you want to sell for, then we're also going to teach you how to find out what you need to buy it at, what the difference is, basically your profit, and what your risk is if you buy a watch of basically losing money. You obviously always want the edge of the market. This is one of the few markets in the world that is there with real assets that are in demand and liquid, that is not being overtly traded and controlled by black boxes, which means that these numbers that nobody else is really looking at except for now you are and me, and together we will build a community of people who will. It only means more liquidity for the market. The more liquidity, the better the market gets. Right now, the market is a little bit illiquid, but when you find liquid watches, those are the ones you're going to be able to make quick profits on, turn around quick profits. And like Warren Buffett says, the number one rule of trading or of investing is don't lose money. That's it. So if you can just go with Warren Buffett's don't lose money idea, and you can calculate these, you can figure out which watches to trade, what price to negotiate at, basically a price that will help you not to lose money. WatchQuant will calculate your risk and your reward, and of course your probability of profit, meaning you always want 51% or higher. You want the edge on the market, and that will help you never lose money. All right, so that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that this was really helpful for you. I know that it's a little bit crazy having to do this math, but you know what? Business is never easy. This is probably the easiest way to make a quick buck, so to speak. If you're just in this to make a quick buck, cool. Flippers are welcome. WatchQuant serves investors who want to hold watches for a long time. We have rating systems to help you do that. You will probably want to buy undervalued watches, and you maybe don't care so much about getting at the lowest possible price. We help flippers out by giving you probability of profit in the next 30 days. We help out people who are looking to do intermediate trades, and of course, just enthusiasts. If you just want to be able to buy watches that are in demand, that are popular, and that you'll be able to eventually sell if necessary, that's another thing that an enthusiast should have. So don't let anybody tell you just buy what you like. Buy what you like, but that's also right for your personal situation. And use tools like eBay or WatchQuant if you wish to help you do so in an efficient manner. Thanks so much for joining me, and we will see you on the next lesson when we're going to jump into watch quant and start calculating. See you then.